I'm so excited. Tonight is movie night again, and we're going with one of my faves, Harry Potter. So every year around Halloween time, I rewatch this series of Harry Potter. I would say film 1 and 4 are my favorites. So we are gonna start with Harry Potter 1 tonight, since we are getting super close to Halloween. And to celebrate, I'm going to recreate some of the meals that they have at their welcome feast at Hogwarts.
Let the feast begin.
That feast is massive. Those tables are filled and filled with different dishes, which is great for us because then we have a lot to choose from. So obviously mine is gonna be a bit of a scaled down feast compared to what they have on the film, but that's what we're taking our inspiration. Welcome back to my channel and welcome if you are new. My name's Nicole, and on our Harry Potter welcome feast menu today, we are gonna make an entire roasted chicken inspired by Ron double fisting his chicken legs. We're gonna add a side of gravy as well. Also in front of Hermione is a huge bowl of potatoes, so we are gonna make our own British mash. And in front of Harry is also a huge bowl of corn cobs. So we'll whip up some of those as well. And then I did not see these on the tables, but listed on the Harry Potter fan page, I read that they also had Yorkshire pudding at this feast. We are gonna make up a batch of those. Of course, for dessert, we are gonna make that iconic Happy Birthday Harry cake from Hagrid.
Baked it myself, words and all.
But I'm gonna do more of a scaled down version. And on the cake, we are gonna make our own butterbeer buttercream icing. I'm so excited for this. Now just be warned, not everything I make may be super traditional British or English way of making the food. But I'm pulling together different recipes and different things. Hopefully it all turns out great. We're at about midday right now, so let's get started. We're gonna go ahead and start with the cake because we wanna give that time to bake and cool. And we're gonna do sort of a scaled down version of the cake because my family's small, there's only 3 of us. So I don't need a full-size cake, even though that's what my husband would probably prefer. So in the film, I don't see that it actually shows what kind of cake it is once Harry's cousin is eating it. I remember when I was a kid, my aunt, my mom's sister, sent us the first Harry Potter book. And that's when the Harry Potter books were super huge back in the day. In the books, it describes the cake as chocolate. So that's what we're gonna make today. So I just added 1 cup of flour. I'm gonna do 3/4 cup of sugar, and then 1/4 cup of unsweetened cocoa powder. I'm gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Give that a little mix. Okay, so now I'm just gonna add the wet ingredients. 1 egg. I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of milk. I'm using whole milk. And 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. We're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. I'm gonna give that a little bit of a mix. And so I have my coffee heating up on my Keurig right now. Let me go pull that off. We're gonna add 1/3 cup of very hot coffee. So I have my oven preheating at 350. Let's go ahead and prep our cake pan. Since this is gonna be a 6-inch cake, I actually only have one 6-inch pan, but I do have a 6-inch Pyrex that's oven safe. So we're just gonna go ahead and divide the batter between these. So hopefully that works out okay. They might be different cooking times, but I'll check on both of them. And I'm gonna start by, I just have a little bit of butter on my paper towel. And I'm gonna butter each of these pans. And I'm gonna add a little bit of that unsweetened cocoa powder to act as my flour, and just sort of dust that all around. So I'm using a small batch recipe so that I could get the measurements right. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in, I just cut and trace each dish with parchment paper so I can line the bottom. And then I'm just gonna go ahead and divide up my batter. You can see here, looks great. It's very loose now after adding the coffee. I'm gonna try and do it evenly, but I'm very terrible at that, I think. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and stick this in the oven for about 22 to 27 minutes. We'll see how long it takes. I just took my cakes out of the oven. So they were two different cooking times. This one took 24 minutes and this Pyrex took about 30 minutes before the toothpick came out clean. So I'm just gonna let them both sit here and cool for maybe 10-15 minutes. And then I'll pull them out of here and then transfer them to a wire rack to continue cooling. But they smell really good. So now that we have our cakes out and starting to cool, I went ahead and hiked up the oven temp to 425 so that we can get going on our chicken, because that's gonna take about an hour and a half in the oven. So I know that for a lot of people, making an entire roast chicken is like easy, but it's not something I do very often. I'm not even sure that I've actually roasted a whole chicken before. I'm excited to try it today. My mother-in-law actually got me this book, one of Ina Garten's cookbooks, who I love, because her roast chickens just seem so easy to make. And this one, I bookmarked the stuff that I really loved. But Ina's roast chicken looks beautiful and her ingredients are so simple. So I'm actually going to follow one of Ina's variations for roast chicken today. And I'm just starting out by peeling up some carrots because I want to sit my chicken on top of a bunch of vegetables rather than just the roasting rack, so that we don't waste that opportunity to really flavor some vegetables with all of that chicken juice. I'm just gonna roughly chop in my carrots, add those to a roasting tray, and I have some celery that I just washed up as well. And I'm gonna give these a rough chop. Add those in. And then I have this used onion that's been sitting in my fridge. This is a good opportunity to use this up. I have a whole chicken with, this one comes without the neck and giblets. This one's about 5 pounds, almost 5.5. Now I'm gonna run it under some water because that's what Ina does, and then pat it dry. So now we're dry. So in the cavity, I'm gonna add a lot of salt and pepper, a whole lemon, and cut this into quarters. And we're gonna stick the entire lemon in there. And I also have a whole bulb of garlic that I'm gonna cut in half. Stick both of these in the cavity as well. It's getting pretty packed in there. And then I have some fresh thyme, and I'm just gonna stick in a good handful and try and stuff it in there as well. Turn it around. We're pretty full in there. I'm gonna go ahead and truss it. Don't worry, definitely washing my hands a ton during this. I do have just a little bit of butcher's twine, which right now is easily available because it's set out next to all the Thanksgiving stuff. And Ina says that we really have to truss the legs and get them close together because if not, they'll burn. That's what my girl Ina says to do. That's what I'm doing. And I'm gonna keep the strings long so that it's easier for me to cut it off later. And then for the wings, I'm just gonna take these and tuck them underneath rather than having to tie those as well. I'm gonna go ahead and place my chicken on top of my vegetables. While we were working on stuffing the cavity, I had some butter melting on the stove. You can see here. And I'm just gonna brush this on the skin. According to Ina, she said that the butter actually works better than olive oil because of the milk solids in there. And hopefully that helps to get the skin really crispy. And then adding more salt on top of that butter and pepper, because that's gonna make the skin really tasty. So we're gonna pop this in the oven for an hour and a half. Okay, now that we cleaned and sanitized a bit, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the British mash. I'm just using here about 1.5 pounds of yellow potatoes, and I'm gonna peel them up so that we can get them boiling in some salted water. Now I'm just gonna cut these up into smaller pieces and add them to my pot. I'm gonna fill this up with water, cold water, and I wanna add a good amount of salt in there and get this boiling. Now that our potatoes are working on the stove, I figure we might as well get started on our Yorkshire pudding. I've actually never made these before, so excited to try because they look delicious. I'm gonna use Gordon Ramsay's recipe, and I'm cutting his recipe in half, so the flour measurement is a little weird, but I'm adding 2 eggs and 3/4 cup of whole milk, and on the half recipe it says to use 5/8 cup of flour. My husband says it equals out to 10 tablespoons. So I'm gonna add that into my blender. So we're gonna get this blended up, and then I'm gonna stick it in the fridge because this recipe says that you need to allow it to rest for at least 30 minutes. What you want to happen is you want the really cold batter to hit the really hot pan so that these Yorkshire puddings really puff up in the oven. Oh wait, I think I almost forgot my salt. Yes, I need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Good thing we did not forget it. So I'm actually gonna blend this up and then sit it in the fridge for maybe even an hour to make sure that it gets really cold. Here is our pudding mix, very liquidy. Let's add it to the fridge. All right, so we're checking on my potatoes and they are fork tender. So we're just gonna shut this off and drain them quickly in a colander. And I'm going to finish them off just in the pan that they were in. The British mash recipe listed adding milk and butter, and that the milk should be heated, almost boiling. So I'm gonna add my 4 tablespoons of butter in there, 1/4 cup of milk that I've heated up, and just some simple salt and pepper to season. And I'm just gonna start mashing this up. Normally in mashed potatoes, I would add an additional kind of cream, either sour cream or our favorite is using cream cheese. So I don't know how traditional this is, but the British mash recipe noted that it doesn't use as much of the cream as American mashed potatoes do. And then we'll go ahead and cover these up so that they stay warm while everything else is finishing. So they look very soft, a good texture. So I just took out my chicken. It's finally reached temp. It took about an hour and 45-ish minutes. I just went ahead and tipped the pan of it and reserved out some of the drippings so that I can use it later to make the gravy. And right now I'm just gonna tin it with foil and let it rest while we work on some other things. But it looks great. I can't believe I made that.
Wicked.
All right, so I had to take a quick break because, well, not really quick, but today was my son's school's fall festival and I had to get him changed into his costume. I dressed him up as Alfalfa this year. Super cute, turned out. Super fun school event, but we're back home and I want to finish off our Harry Potter dinner so we can get started on the movie. I just have a couple of corn cobs here that I dehusked, that I peeled, I think is the term. And I'm just gonna cut them in half. And these I'm gonna do simple and start steaming them in some boiling water. So we'll get those in. Now, while our corn is going, I wanna get started on our cooking up our Yorkshire pudding. On the recipe, it says if you don't have the Yorkshire actual pudding tins, that you can go ahead and use your muffin tray. So that's what I'm gonna do now. And I have my oven preheating at 425. And I'm just gonna add in a little bit of oil to each tin and just sort of brush the oil along the bottom and the edges. I'm gonna pop this into that oven and get this pan super, super hot. He says that you want it to the point of almost smoking hot when you pour in your cold batter. So I'm gonna put this in while the oven is preheating and see how hot we can get it. Okay, so we took our hot pan out of the oven and I forgot we're only doing 6, so I'm not sure why I oiled all of them. But I'm gonna take my cold batter and pour it in 3/4 full. And I'm hearing a little bit of a sizzle, which is great. We're going to stick these in the oven quickly after these are filled for about 15 to 20 minutes until they're golden and risen. And you don't want to open the oven door until they're done or else they might deflate. Oh, it looks like I might get a little more than 6 out of here. Okay, so I'm gonna get started on my butterbeer buttercream frosting. And I just went ahead and softened my butter a bit. The recipe I'm using says that it tastes just like the butterbeer at Harry Potter World at Disneyland, which I have never been to, by the way, but I definitely want to see it one day. Hopefully this tastes pretty close. For her recipe, she's doing a full 8-inch cake. For mine, I'm gonna cut her recipe in half since I'm making sort of a mini cake, a 6-inch. And I added 1 cup of butter and I'm gonna throw in an 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna cream this together on the mixer for about 5 to 10 minutes until this butter gets pretty fluffy. So let's get that going. Okay, it's been about 5 minutes and you can see that my butter is nice and fluffy now. So let's go ahead and add in the butterscotch. I'm just using some regular butterscotch chips and I went ahead and melted it in the microwave in like intervals of 30 seconds till it gets melted. It only took maybe 1.5 minutes or so. And I let it cool slightly, pour it down into my butter mixture. I just love the smell of butterscotch. especially during the holidays. And this is gonna help to give us our butter beer flavor. And I'm just gonna mix this on medium until it's combined. Now that that's combined, I'm gonna go ahead and take my powdered sugar and I'm gonna sift it in a little bit at a time and then mix it on low until it's combined. Our powdered sugar is in. It's like a nice light caramel color right now. We're gonna go ahead and add in our vanilla extract, half a teaspoon, and then half a teaspoon of this butter extract, which I had to go out and buy because I don't think I've ever even used it before or knew that it existed. But on the recipe, she mentioned that the butter extract is what's gonna help give it the butter part of butterbeer. So I'm gonna throw in also half a teaspoon. It really does smell like concentrated butter. And then I'm just gonna mix this on high for like a minute until it gets nice and fluffy. Just took out my Yorkshire pudding from the oven. Now they are golden brown and crisp, many of them, but they don't exactly look like the picture. The picture shows the insides or the middles a little deflated. So I'm not sure, but they smell really good. So we're gonna let these cool for a bit because they're super hot. Now that my butterbeer frosting is done, this is what it's looking like. You can see it's like a light caramel-ish color. I'm gonna put a small amount into a separate bowl and use my food coloring. So I have here just my green and pink coloring. Hagrid's cake is pink and uses green for the writing. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and carve up my chicken here. The skin, it's nice. You hear that? Nice and crispy. So I'm just gonna cut off the legs. You can see there's a lot of juice in here. Now that we have the chicken carved up, we're gonna go ahead and get started on making our gravy. So remember I reserved some of those chicken drippings. I want to add all of that flavor into here, and I just have my pan on medium heat right now. And I'm also going to add to it a little bit of butter. This is 2 tablespoons of flour, but we'll just see how much we think we can add. Cook that flour a bit. Actually, might even just add a little bit more. And And I'm on medium-low right now, cooking down this flour. White wine here. I'm gonna add just a splash. Get that cooked down. Chicken broth, so I'm using bone broth because this is what I have on hand right now. And I'm also gonna eyeball that and try and whisk out all of these lumps. And it's thickened. So now at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and season with a little bit of salt and lots of pepper. And this is done. Let's pour this up. Okay friends, we are finally done with our Harry Potter welcome feast for movie night. Everything looks so good. The chicken is so juicy still, and the skin is super crispy. My gravy and mash tastes delicious, so I'm excited. We're gonna go ahead and dish this up and serve up a little bit of our Harry birthday cake. I am very tired. I ended up doing a lot today. I admit this was a little ambitious for this day, but so happy I did because everything turned out amazing and we're excited for movie night. Thank you all for joining me on this one, and if you want to hang out with me some more in the kitchen, go ahead and click on one of these videos here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!